Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And welcome to a beautiful Friday, November 9th, right here in Pittsburgh, PA. Blue skies, temperature rising, and, well, it's Friday. I don't know what more you could want. I'm all on my own today, which is, I'm not really because you're there, but no one in the studio with me other than, of course, Jess, who's always here. But I just want to spend much of today, again, talking about anything that we haven't managed to discuss in the wake of the election on Tuesday. And it continues to fascinate me. The thing that I'm most blown away about is that the Republicans fully expected to win that election. And not just the not just, Joe Schmo Republican out here on the street, but Mitt Romney expected to win. I thought they knew they were going to lose, which is why the plane set down in Pittsburgh on election afternoon, which I found very odd because I did not recall candidates for president ever campaigning on election day itself. For that matter, candidates for anything campaigning on election day itself. So I thought, wow, this is a clear sign of absolute desperation on their part. But everything I've read since tells me that was not the case, that they flew on from here to Boston fully confident that they were going to win. And the fact that they were that out of touch, or that unwilling to acknowledge the information that was out there in front of them is, to me, astonishing. I assumed all these Republicans I knew were putting up a brave front. I recall on the Friday night before the election when I was doing the 4802 show on WQED here, the public TV station that I do every Friday night. Oh, you want to watch tonight to watch my Republican cohorts eat some serious crow. But that night, at the very end, last Friday night, both of the Republicans predicted you could tell with it just a sense of absolute certainty that they were going to win. One saying Romney would win by 4 to 5 percentage points. The other, I think off air, said, I really think it'll be a landslide. And I remember saying on air, you're just saying that because you have to say that. To which the response was a laugh. And I thought the laugh was an acknowledgement that I was right. Not! That wasn't what the laugh was. The laugh was I couldn't believe I was saying this, I guess, now that I look back at it. I thought they had to say it because they didn't want to discourage their voters from coming out and blah, blah, blah. No, they thought that. Okay, now they're both very much political insiders. They're operatives. I'm shocked that they didn't know. But that Romney didn't know? Here's further evidence that Romney didn't know. All the people around him didn't know. There have been millions of quotes now from insiders saying we all were stunned. On the Charles River in Boston on Tuesday night, I guess outside or very near wherever Romney's headquarters were, wherever he was going to deliver his victorious speech. And we were told that was the only speech he had ready, was his victory speech. And we were also told that Barack Obama had written too. But not Romney, because losing was not even, wasn't possible. Outside on the Charles River was a barge loaded with fireworks. And there was a 15 or 18-minute fireworks extravaganza that was planned, was paid for, and was ready to go as soon as Romney finished his victory speech. Now, that's unusual, too. I've never heard of a campaign doing that. On the other hand, apparently the fireworks workers got notice there would be no reason to set these fireworks off, and the barge was unloaded, and I guess everybody went home. So this level of astonishment and watching now Republicans trying to process, because they're still in a state of, some of them, denial, and still don't quite believe it. And this is what happens when you choose to live in a bubble. It's as simple as that. This is what happens when you choose to disregard any information that is troublesome to you and to only listen to people who are telling you what you want to hear. They are so truly trapped inside that echo chamber of a bubble in which they live, including the campaign, which is amazing. Even if they want to keep their voters, their followers, their base in that kind of happy bubble, that's one thing. But to put themselves in there too is potentially disastrous, which is exactly what happened. So here is an interesting piece I came across. This is an interview with Obama's lead pollster. And it all comes down to this kind of thing. This is where the Republicans went wrong. They refused to believe what was right in front of them if they cared to see it. But they were only looking at the polls that were telling them what they wanted to hear, and they literally kept disregarding and pushing away any poll that told them something else. And here is what Obama's chief pollster says, and it's interesting because this isn't Schadenfreude in particular. This is a pollster. This is a guy talking. He says this: from the start, there was a theory operating on the Republican side. They were going to make this a referendum on Barack Obama using the old Ronald Reagan question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Okay, sounds reasonable. But he said that's not the question that the voters were asking themselves. This is interesting. The voters were looking at both these two guys, and they were saying, which of you is going to make my life better 4 years from now? What the Obama people knew is that the electorate was savvier than the Republicans take them for. A whole big hunk of the electorate still, 4 years later, does not blame Barack Obama for this economy. That's what Republicans didn't get through their head. They understand what got us into that mess. And it was 8 years of Republican policy that was then handed off this, shit sandwich to Barack Obama, who in 4 years stopped the horrific damage and slowly began to turn it around. And that the electorate were savvy enough to understand that this was not some ordinary recession. This was a cataclysm. This was a catastrophe. And they rightly saw it as emanating from the Republicans' policies. So, Obama's pollster said that we went out and looked at what people were really thinking. And first of all, people who voted agreed more than 3-1 that this economic meltdown that Barack Obama inherited, that's fact, inherited, was an, quote, extraordinary crisis, more severe than any we've seen in decades, and was not a typical recession that the country has in a sort of regular manner. 3-1, voters understood that. So stop and think about what the Republican mantra was. Look what he's done. Look at this economy. Can your children afford more of this? Voters are taking that in and saying, what the hell are you talking about? He didn't do that. He's starting to fix it. And you don't fix it overnight. It's like the voters were more mature, more reasonable, more sober, more adult. So the Romney campaign also kept hanging on to everything that had ever happened in the past, which is typical, right? And I recall also, hearkening back to that show I do on Friday nights, 4802, that's what the Republicans have been telling us on that show for months and months and months. Even when we started talking about this election way back, God knows when, they said, no incumbent president has ever won re-election when the unemployment rate is blah, 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 so he can't. gas prices, housing starts, blah, blah, blah. No incumbent president has ever won re-election. And what I kept thinking, I didn't say it because, these guys supposedly, I guess those are facts. But in my head, I kept thinking, but see, I don't think now is the same as it ever has been before. Now is different. And so I think all these old paradigms aren't necessarily going to work. This is a president that was reelected with all of this trouble around him because the voters actually saw that he was fixing it. Not overnight, but fixing it. And that he hadn't caused it. Hey, hi.
Hey, the latest thing I heard on there, too, now they're saying the reason Obama won is because he gives everybody free stuff, and the Republicans don't.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well,
people pay into these programs.
Right. Here's the thing. If the Republicans are going to continue to blind themselves to reality, in other words, comfort themselves with, the only reason he won is because, everybody that votes for him are a bunch of moochers and they want free stuff and they're not hardworking people, then they will just continue to get absolutely pasted at the polls. They until they wake up and understand that that's not the case, and until they stop denigrating so many of us with their excuses. You're not a moocher. I'm not a moocher. Everyone who voted for Barack Obama is not a moocher. Those are Americans, hard-working Americans.
Exactly. And another thing, this pisses me off about this Social Security and Medicare. Well, Medicare, it's got its own problems, but Social Security, that has nothing to do with the budget. You pay into that, you get that. And all you got to do, wait a couple years, is raise the Social Security tax. It will cover it. This raising the age is a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say about it. I think they need to take that off the table.
Okay. Well,
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. There will have to be some. Look, we're living a lot longer. When Social Security came in, life expectancy was much lower. Pushing that age back a bit is not out of the realm of reasonableness, I would suggest. The Republicans just have to wake up. Why are we telling them that? Let them go back to sleep, as far as I'm concerned. But again, their level of denial and unwillingness to deal with reality is killing them. So I had a thought. What was that thought? Dang it. It disappeared on me. On the way in, there was a tweet. I was talking about how in their excuses, Republicans continue to denigrate so many of us, trying to explain to themselves why we elected Barack Obama. We're stupid, we're entitled, we're commies, we're idiots, I don't know, whatever. Keep on doing that, because when you keep doing that to people, you aren't exactly going to interest them in listening to what you have to say. And since demographically, your piece of real estate is just shrinking and shrinking before our eyes, this seems like a really self-defeating kind of a strategy, Republicans. So I saw that Glenn Beck, because John Boehner is actually making little murmurs that he might be reasonable, which, by the way, are very little murmurs, believe me. And just his little murmurs have created a tsunami of angry recriminations from the usual parties who, and in Beck's case, he called him ballless and a girl. Okay, so I was thinking, great, okay, so keep on using girl as a pejorative. Keep doing it. And then when you wonder why women don't vote for you, try to remember that someone, not even a friend, because I don't consider myself one, tried to tell you that when you use the word for what I am and what for more than 50% of the voters are, girls, and you use that as a pejorative, you think we're going to be well disposed to you? I don't think so. Get a clue. Okay, speaking of not getting a clue, have you been looking at some of what's emanating out of the right wing after the election? Some of this is just, it's amazing. Let me, here's one of my favorites, Tony Perkins. You know him. Now, I don't mean the Psycho act. Well, I do mean the Psycho, but not the actor in Psycho. I mean Tony Perkins, the Family Research Council. He said this. How do we go forward as Christians? I think there is going to be a temptation for some to go to the mountaintop and just wait for the rapture. But that's not in the instruction manual that God has given us. Woo! All right, excuse me. We're canceling the meeting. I have to go to the mountaintop and wait for the rapture. Hello?
Hello, Lynn. How are you?
I'm fine.
You know, one thing I think politicians should learn from all of this is that you cannot accurately assess yourself. They looked at their own polls, and in their own polls they saw that they were either leading or close to winning when all the other polls said no. Mm-hmm. And I think they were looking at their own polls through rose-colored glasses.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, stop and think of how they were denigrating. They were saying when the polls came out and showed Obama leading in all of these states where they insisted he wasn't, they simply said that the pollsters were biased, that these were biased, and or the media were biased. The messenger was biased, or the polls were biased. And remember when the unemployment numbers came out, and damn it, they weren't as bad as the Republicans wanted them to be, then all of a sudden the Bureau of Labor Statistics was biased.
Right.
I mean, they simply are incapable of living with facts.
Well, another point is, if you look at the effort they did in analyzing the environment, what you would need to work with that environment to receive the result that you desired, and failed so miserably, what kind of job would Romney done as president if by some miracle he was elected? Because many of the same skills that you need to be president are the same skills that you need to run an election. You have to look at the situation, find out what's the best way to approach the situation to get the desired result.
Right.
And the fact that he could not do it successfully in the election and missed it so badly. He ran a 1980s campaign in 2012, and that just didn't work.
That's right. The country has moved on. They just don't get it. Absolutely right. Thank you.
And if he, did it so badly with the election, what kind of job, if he, by some miracle, he would have become president, what kind of president would he have done? Using the same skill and the same assessment abilities.
Right. There you go. Thank you.
All right.
Maybe he just would have surrounded himself with people who would tell him what he wanted to hear. Although we don't know, because Romney was and continues to be a cipher. We don't know. He was whatever. He was a shapeshifter. He was a chameleon. He was whatever, a crowd pleaser. He was, I don't know. Here's Mike Huckabee, who was like praying to God to please forgive us, God. This is Mike Huckabee. Forgive us, God. for not accepting the responsibility that comes with the freedom to change things. We know we have sinned against you. We have done it in a way that we've shown contempt. We know we have done it in a manner which defiled the sacred bonds of marriage. So there's Huckabee telling people to repent. There's what's his name? Psycho telling people, trying to talk people off the mountaintop where they're waiting for the rapture. Here's someone on the National Organization for Marriage Board. Barack Obama is still a liar. Barack Obama, and he's ranting actually at the media. And you hit it. Barack Obama is still the selfish, cowardly commander-in-chief who abandons America and blah, blah, blah. And then he goes on, faced with your monolithic groupthink. Again, media. Your insistent flacking for your beloved leader. Your dishonesty that is equal to his dishonesty. Your emulation of Pravda. We Republicans will not give up. Just because brown-shirted thugs aren't beating your opponents in the streets doesn't mean you aren't every bit as much the enemies of democracy as any Nazi ever was. God! Okay, here's somebody from Liberty Counsel. This was a referendum on the soul of America. We grieve today like we have lost a friend. Millions of Americans looked evil in the eye and adopted it. Some Christian observers called the Democratic Party platform a Romans 1 platform, and they were right. Abortion, same-sex marriage, immorality carried the day. And no doubt, marriage will come under greater attack. Immorality will be exalted. Sadly, the country could easily collapse under the weight of escalating economic debt. Islam will be emboldened. Our military will become weaker. The world will become a more dangerous place. Here's somebody else, Rick Green of Wall Builders. He figured out that it's because of our public education system that the voters are now so stupid and brainwashed that that's how Obama got reelected. This is a system that has for 60 years taught the virtues of socialism while tearing down capitalism and traditional values. We're simply now living with the results. I don't even know. I mean, some of this stuff is so unbelievable. So there you have it. There's the Republicans who remain in their cocoon, in their bubble, more angry, more bitter, more frightened, and still refusing to just venture out. Guys, come on out. Engage with some of these people you think are so evil. Find in them a common humanity and maybe just a difference of opinion. All right, and here this from Russ. And this is exactly what I think Russ is agreeing with what the Obama pollster said. Lynn, I feel most people who voted for the president felt like I did, that I was not better off than I was 4 years ago, but I was not worse off than I was 4 years ago. And things, although slowly, are coming around. That, I think, is the assessment. And that this takes more time. You don't do the damage that the Republicans did in the 8 years of George W. Bush. Handed a surplus from 8 years of Bill Clinton. Not only squandered it, but dug the deepest deficit we have ever seen. Started 2 wars, kept them off budget. I mean, you cannot make up the outrageous irresponsibility, fiscal irresponsibility of the Republicans. And then they blame the consequences of their policies on Barack Obama. They tried to hang that on him. Lots of Americans did fall for it, but the majority did not. It speaks well of us. Congratulations. I'm taking a break.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on the 2012 Best of Pittsburgh winners. This week, get discounts on the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, the Pittsburgh Opera's Don Giovanni, Chicago at Heinz Hall, Dozens, and the Harris Grill. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's e-commerce mall. Bergbargains.com.
For the millions living with COPD, breathing becomes a real struggle. COPD stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but you may have heard of it as chronic bronchitis or emphysema. Over time, it makes it harder and harder to breathe until you feel like you're breathing through a straw. COPD is the 4th leading cause of death in the U.S. It kills 1 person every 4 minutes, and it took my grandmother. An estimated 24 million Americans are affected, but as many as half of them don't even know it. It's a race against time to spread the word about this serious disease. If you're over 35 and have ever smoked, you could be at risk. The good news is, there are steps you can take to improve your symptoms. I'm Danica Patrick, and I drive for COPD. Take action today to breathe better tomorrow. Join the movement at driveforcopd.com, take our screening questionnaire today, and talk to your doctor.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okie doke. PJ writes, the idea that the Romney campaign thought they were going to win points to the fact that I discussed with you and Chris earlier this week. It's about consciousness. And as we see time and time again, and as you stated, the right exists in a dreamlike state. They have taken themselves out of reality to soothe their ideologically broken hearts. I recommend they all read. Everything I need to know about life I learned in... They all read Everything I Need to Know About Life I Learned in Kindergarten. Perception is reality. Yeah, until that perception runs into the reality of conscientiousness. The electorate showed that we understand that we have to live next to 300 million Americans who are different to a person. And so we have no choice but to get along. So let them isolate themselves till they die out, and then we can really begin to evolve. Oops, I used a scientific term. Maybe this election will prove to them science works. You know what? Yeah, if they'd looked at those polls, the real polls, and believed them, they could have recalibrated and maybe won. But they turned their backs on it. Science works, and diversity is the only successful way to function. In anything. In investing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. In genetics, in environment, society, governing. Norman Rockwell is dead. And trying to force society to operate in some ideological falseness that never existed in the first place is a non-starter from here on out. PJ mentions evolution, which brings me to one of my more favorite stories of this election. And that is you remember the Georgia congressman who is he an MD? Yeah, he's a doctor too, who was caught railing against science and evolution to some audience at a church, I believe, in a speech he gave. He was denigrating evolution, embryology, remember the Big Bang Theory, suggesting that everything he had learned in medical school was wrong. I'm thinking, God, if this were my doctor, I would run so screaming away from this character. But this is a guy who, on Tuesday, was reelected to the House of Representatives. And he's got plenty of company, right? These guys are all still there, almost all, still there. But here's the fun part. Well, it's not so much fun. So he is a Georgia congressman. He had no opposition. So when people who lived in that district in Georgia, and that includes Athens, Georgia, went to the polls, just his name. That was it. What is his name? Brown. Just his name. So he was a shoo-in. Now, obviously, it wasn't just his name. There was a little thing that says write-in. And there were lots of write-ins. In fact, so many that in one county of his district, and this is the only one that they had the numbers for when this was written. This was in the Washington Post. So this number is really bigger. In just one county in this evolution-denying Georgia congressman's district, Charles Darwin got over 4,000 write-in votes. 4,000. Which you gotta love. So, well, Chuck, what you gonna do? What else we got? David's writing me something. Sorry. From the moment Mitt Romney stepped off stage Tuesday night, having just delivered a brief concession speech that he had written only that evening, the massive infrastructure surrounding his campaign quickly began to disassemble itself. Aides taking cabs home late that night got rude awakenings when they found the credit cards linked to the campaign no longer worked. Can you imagine? So they're trying, that credit card was just, free money for the longest time. Here's another thing that happened that must be a slap in the face for Romney. Shortly after he lost, a little message went into the earpieces of all those Secret Service guys who've been protecting him, and it essentially said, okay, detail over, stand down. And so it really must be an extraordinarily rude awakening to go from being, even in your own head, I mean, just minutes away from becoming the president of the United States, to now being, as he so famously told a bunch of people who were unemployed, truly unemployed yourself, nothing to do, nowhere to go. All of that wondrousness around you, you being the center of the universe, it's gone. That'd be rough. And the fireworks didn't go off. The guys down on the river putting the fireworks back in the trucks. That's gotta be a hard thing. And I mean, the empathetic person in me feels for him. But I bet his wife actually is happy. I mean, what the hell did she know? Oh, boy. Okay. And here is something else that I do want to talk about. And that is, you know who we have to thank in large part for this incredible win on Tuesday? It's a demographic, and it's yes, Hispanics. Yes. But I want to zero in on a group that was getting a lot of crap from media, from everybody, for their lack of engagement, for their lack of enthusiasm. And that would be our young people. the youngest voters. Unbelievably, the youngest voters turned out in larger numbers on Tuesday than they had 4 years ago with Obama's first run. And this is interesting, too, because the Republicans were looking at the lack of, just crazed enthusiasm. They were saying, oh, his crowds are smaller and there's nowhere near the enthusiasm we saw 4 years ago. And again, they were misreading that. This country's been through a lot in the last 4 years. There's a sobriety about us. And even about our young, with our young. Saddled as they are with college debt and this lousy employment picture and everything. They're done with this black messiah, blah, blah, blah. No. Everybody's sobered up. But they didn't lose their minds. And so they actually came out in larger numbers this time. And, here's again the old mantra that Republicans are still living with. It's old people who you gotta kowtow to. His old people are the ones that vote. I've heard that ever since I've been a child. And it's been true. And it's still true. Old people vote. But guess what? Young people vote, too. And thank God for it. Their vote should even count more because the fact is they're the ones who are going to have to live in the future. The 18 to 29-year-old demographic voted in record numbers. In fact, 18 to 29-year-olds made up 19% of the electorate. That's huge. 1/5 of the electorate were kids. I think it was kids. Under 30. They had set a record, again, for that demographic 4 years ago. That record was broken again. This is a great sign. And it should be a very troublesome sign for, again, the Republican Party, which, as we know, and all you have to do is look at them, is old. It skews old. It skews, well, totally is white. It's blindingly white and old as the country becomes young and brown. This is not a good position to be in. And for those that just are clinging to all of their usual narratives and their realities, then they're asking to become irrelevant. It'll be interesting to see who the brave voices that will arise in the Republican Party who will attempt to lead them out of the wilderness. It'll be interesting to see. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Republican Party is able to finally divorce itself from the Kool-Aid purveyors like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, who have helped in this push to the edge, and who, from what I can tell, continue to push them to the edge. It'll be interesting to see who rises up and tries to prevent this party from either becoming totally disabled or from wandering in the desert for another 40 years. We're already seeing signs that the Republicans do realize we've got to change on immigration. We cannot not go after these Hispanics. And the only way we're going to do that is all of a sudden we're going to have to stop the xenophobia. We're going to have to stop the sort of, the ugliness of where we've been on immigration. Some of them might turn on a dime. I understand Sean Hannity is now saying he's evolved overnight on immigration. The fact is that election pushed this country back to the center. Didn't go left. It was a leftward movement, and we end up back in something resembling a center. And so all those Republicans over there hanging off the right side of the cliff, and unwilling to acknowledge that the only way they'll survive is to crawl to the left. If they're incapable of doing that, if they'd rather go down with their self-righteous principles intact, fine. Goodbye. But it'll be interesting to see, as I have said. Who are the potential Moseses that will arise in the Republican camp? Willing to take on Rush Limbaugh, willing to take on the Tea Party, willing to speak truth to the pitchfork-wielding, spittle-spraying, angry mob. It'll be interesting to see. Break number 2. Be back in a minute.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Winter has arrived and it's cold outside, so get to Little's for all your UGG needs. Little's has Uggs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. And don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. All available at Little's Shoes. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for a closer look at City Theater's South Side stories. Plus, Lisa Marie Presley, Chicago, Led Zeppelin, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, welcome back, and input from you guys. Beth writes, Monday, Bloomberg, the media service, not the mayor, well, the mayor's media service, reported that the fastest growing segment in new welfare claims and other social program claims is coming from Republican districts, Republican areas. So isn't that interesting? The takers, the moochers are your own, Mr. Republican. They're your own. Very interesting stat, but then again, some folks on the right seem to have a problem with, well, stats, numbers in general. All right. Louise writes, the Republican delusion about this election is proof perfect of an inefficient, incompetent, out-of-touch group of players. Any good, successful businessman knows and never, never, never underestimates the competition. Sort of like the Bush administration not paying attention to information the terrorists were planning to attack inside the U.S. in 2001. Arrogance and incompetency. Incompetency. The Romney as brilliant business leader meme is blown. Will anyone point this out? Well, Louise, you just did. Here's the other thing. All of those gazillionaire businessmen, oh, they must be very smart to have that much money. The investments they made in Karl Rove and in these candidates and in this party and in Mitt Romney and in the super PACs And the return they got? Nothing. Hundreds of millions of dollars, these smart businessmen. And they expected a return. Yes, even a monetary return, not just a win. The win would have gotten them monetary return. This was worth the investment once we get our guys in. Well, bad investment. Bad decision making. You went into an area you didn't know. And then you refused to know it, learn about it. Ignorance and incompetence arrogance, and incompetence, as Louise said. Russ wants to know when 4802 is on Channel and Time. That is on every Friday night on WQED. That's your public television station, PBS in Pittsburgh. I don't know where it is on your channel. On your, it's I still remember it as Channel 13. And it's on at 7:30 Friday nights. Immediately followed by Washington Week in Review at 8 o'clock. So it's like a little local yokel Washington Week in Review. And, it should be interesting. It should be interesting tonight. Hello there.
Hello, Lynn. I overslept this morning. I had to call you today. This is Michael in Palm Springs.
Yes.
I was a Republican yesterday. I'm mistaken yesterday. I gave a false report on the result of one of our ballot initiatives regarding the three strikes law. California did vote to change the three strikes law.
Oh, well, that is good news. That is
I just read that wrong, and then I wanted to call you this morning.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, because that is
not a problem. I don't like to give out false information.
Yeah,
so
I understand. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay, bye-bye. Would that everybody else who gives out false information bothers to correct it at a later date, huh? What else we got here? Oh, I love this. So, the folks in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is as red a state as you can have, were watching their local news on Wednesday, and came time for the traffic report. And the traffic reporter apparently said something to the effect of, well, there's been an awful lot of people saying that if the election went in a certain way, that they were going to move to Canada. So I thought I should tell you the best, quickest, and most direct route to Canada. And he spent time with graphics actually showing Tulsans how to get out of Tulsa and get onto I-29 and pretty much head straight up to the Canadian border. And then he went so far as to also remind them, now when you get to Canada, make sure that you have an ID card or a passport because you need that to get in. And once you're in Canada, you're going to get back on Highway 75. And if you're moving to Canada, you're going to need to know 75. That's the Lord Selkirk Highway, okay? So. What's funny is I understand when Democrats say, and we do, if they wins, I'm moving to Canada. I understand that because, Canada has national health care. Canada, although I believe it's getting more conservative in its way, is more progressive in many ways than we are, and more perhaps a better fit for somebody with a liberal perspective. I mean, actually, you know, Canada, for those who were not wanting to go to fight in Vietnam, that was the destination. And the people who have historically run off to Canada are people of the more liberal, progressive color, right? Right? So there's something so funny about now hearing these right-wingers say that they're going to move to Canada. Well, what do you think you're going to end up with there, guys? Huh? I mean, they had Obamacare before Obama was even born. Jeez. So, there you have it. Trying to think. Is there anything else I have misplaced for today? Monday is Veterans Day, right? Or actually, Sunday is Veterans Day. Monday is when I guess some people get the day off and stuff like that, and state stores are closed or something. Are they? No mail? I don't know. But we are going to have a volunteer join us for part of the show. I'm a volunteer, a veteran. Well, veterans are. I mean, now our military is volunteers. Volunteers. I just want to get you this one piece of information. Okay, here is one of those reports, and so if you don't mind me reading it to you, of how stunned, and it just amazes me, is what I started the show talking about, how stunned the Romney inner circle, you know, it's one thing for a Republican in Cranberry to say, what the hell just happened? But when his inner circle didn't expect what happened, it shows why they lost. Because you cannot win if you don't know where the playing field is and where, and what the parameters are and who's in the stadium and who you're appealing to. And for some reason, this absolutely will not come up. Why won't this come up? Because I want to share it, huh? It's a piece from here it is from CBS. Okay, here we go. It says here that Romney's campaign got its first hint that something was wrong when state campaign workers on the ground in northeastern Ohio, Northern Virginia, Central Florida, and Miami-Dade began reporting back that there were huge turnouts in their areas, and these are Democratic areas. So they got their first, this was not supposed to happen, according to them. They thought, what? Well, we thought the Democrats were depressed and weren't into this guy anymore, and all those enthusiastic young people. And what? They were being told. Now, this was just a hint. They still weren't willing to deal with it. It wasn't until the polls closed that their little bit of some concern turned into alarm. They expected North Carolina to be called almost immediately after the polls closed. It wasn't being called. They expected Pennsylvania to be up in the air all night. Nope. Pennsylvania went early. And here's what one of the senior advisors who was up there with Romney, he said, "We went into the evening confident. I don't think there was one person who saw this coming. They couldn't even process the information they were seeing on the television screens. They couldn't believe they had been so wrong. And then Karl Rove gave him something to hold on to. Because there was Karl Rove on Fox all of a sudden saying, no, 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 no. How dare you call Ohio for Obama? And so, desperate, the folks in Boston and in Romney's hotel room decided, okay, this is wrong. Karl's telling us it's wrong, and if anybody should know, Karl should know. They literally were blindsided. And apparently, they said Paul Ryan seemed in a state of shock. One advisor said, there's nothing worse than when you think you're going to win, and you don't. Yeah, I guess that would be true. It was like a sucker punch. You know, it's another thing for John McCain, who went into election night knowing he lost. But these guys really thought they were going to win. Amazing. And that level of cluelessness says something that is at the heart of perhaps why they lost in the first place. The whole Republican Party needs to get out more. They need to be introduced to America as it exists, not as they wish it were, not as they think it used to be and will never be again. It is changing. And Republicans traditionally don't like change. They never have. They've stood in its way every time it has happened. They stood against women's rights. Oh, I remember that. Although back then there were some moderate Republicans who didn't. But those guys have been purged, so they're none of those now. So now they stand against gay rights. And now they're always on the wrong side of history. And you would think they'd learn. I am telling you my advice to my Republican friends. And they're few, actually. My Republican friends. Come out. Come out. Venture out. It's not as scary as you think out here. And meet this country you live in. This wondrous, roiling mosaic that you live in. Learn to love color. Because white is boring. White bread is boring. Try 7 grain. Really. Try wheat. Try pumpernickel. Try rye. But get out into the world. Otherwise, you ain't going to make it. Simple as that. All right, I'm looking at a blue sky out there. I'm looking at sun. And you know what? I'm going to go out into it. And I'm going to lift my face to it. And I'm going to engage it. And I'm going to revel in it. And I'm going to rake leaves. Sounds like a good day to me. You guys have a great weekend. And Monday, Veterans Day, see you right here.
Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments. Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.